companies to try to develop those competencies from scratch. Okay, so, and any other reasons why? Strategic, okay.
Gain control over the market.
Gain control over the market. Now, what is the main motivation for somebody to gain market share? Main motivation is greater market share translates into pricing power down the road. Okay, so in the long run, gaining market share will translate into a better bottom line because of the pricing power that it will eventually confer upon you. Right? Anything else that we
create additional cash flows?
I'm sorry?
Additional cash flows.
Okay, to create additional cash flows.
Manage competition.
Okay, manage competition. It's much easier to, for example, why did Mittal Steel acquire Arcelor? Because the reason is if you go out and buy out your nearest competitor, you're reducing the competition because there was a danger for Mittal that Arcelor could acquire other companies and become larger than Mittal Steel. So the best way is to, reduce competition by buying out your competitors. So as you can see, there are various motivations as to why companies pursue mergers and acquisitions. Alright, the word synergy was mentioned earlier. Now, when we use the word synergy, what exactly are we talking about? The sum is worth more than the parts taken individually. Right? The sum is worth more. So essentially what we are saying is 2 plus 2 equals 5. So, when we talk about synergies, we can group them into quantifiable versus non-quantifiable synergies. Okay, what would be an example of a quantifiable synergy and what would be an example of a non-quantifiable synergy? See, when two companies combine, one of the ways you can achieve synergy is through cost reduction, because then, especially if it is a horizontal acquisition whereby you acquire a company in the same line of business or a very closely related line of business, there's an overlapping of functions due to which you can reduce costs by eliminating overlapping departments and so forth. To a large extent on external factors over which you really have no control, right? Because if you combine with another firm, that is going to result in some defensive measures or offensive measures taken by your competitors. So those actions by your competitors are going to influence whether you'll be able to achieve revenue enhancement or not. See, so while cost reduction is internal to the firm, you can quantify it with a fair amount of precision. Revenue enhancement, on the other hand, is not really within your control. Okay? Because the actions of your competitors are going to influence whether you achieve revenue enhancement or not. So I would say that would be an example of a non-quantifiable synergy. Okay, here is a simple equation. What we are saying is that the value of the combined firm is the value of the two, where from that, if you subtract the value of the two firms taken individually, minus the premium paid for the acquisition, the bid premium, plus the expenses of the acquisition process, that together, if you end up with a positive figure, would be the synergy that you are able to generate. Okay? So the term within the brackets is the synergistic effect. And once from that, if you subtract the premium and the expenses of the acquisition process, so that is the net acquisition value, which is the NAV here. So the NAV should be positive in order for you to justify going forward with the acquisition. Right? Now, what a great visionary that person is, and so on. So that is the reason why sometimes synergies get overestimated, and as a result of it, many of the acquisitions end up becoming a failure. In fact, I would say more than 50% of the acquisitions fail within the first 5 years. Okay. And the reasons for that is either the synergy that you had envisaged is not realized. Alternatively, you might end up paying too much for the acquisition. Thereby, even if you achieve the synergy, the cost of the acquisition more than offsets the synergy you expect to get from it. Okay, what are the sources of synergy in the following deals? Let's talk about a few of these recent deals. Okay, this is a question for you. I'm sure you've been reading in the papers about the Microsoft Yahoo saga. I mean, Yahoo was successfully rebuffed Microsoft, but then now they're talking about joining forces again. So, what do you think are the sources of synergy in the Microsoft Yahoo deal? What motivated Microsoft to approach Yahoo?
Brand image.
Brand image
of Yahoo.
Okay, but I mean, isn't Microsoft already a very strong brand? I mean, so that may be a reason, but is there a more compelling reason for it?
Google.
I'm sorry.
Wants to compete with Google.
Google says, okay.
Yeah.
Should have a niche.
See, basically, what experts say is that the market for online advertising is going to grow exponentially in the next few years. And clearly, Google is the uncrowned king in that space, right? So, if Microsoft is to compete effectively with Google, the only way for them, they felt, is to acquire another company that has already certain competencies in this area, which is Yahoo. All right. So the main reason was to be able to compete more effectively with Google and offer more choices to companies with regard to their online advertising. Now, what about the Tata Chorus deal? What was the source of synergy? I mean, what did Tata expect? I mean, this was really a game-changing acquisition. I mean, in fact, if you see the number of acquisitions that have been undertaken by Indian companies in the last couple of years, I think what really triggered a change in the mindset was the Tata Chorus deal. I think because it gave Indian companies the confidence that they could acquire any company they wished. I mean, it has really propelled Indian companies into the center stage in global mergers and acquisitions. So, and psychology has a lot to do with business. So it really created the impetus to propel acquisitions by Indian firms. So what do you think were the sources of synergy in this particular deal? Well, mainly the thing is and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but one is obviously it enables Tata Steel to become the number 5 player in the global steel sector. Okay, from number 15 or so, you kind of catapult yourself to the 5th position. And now, as you have noticed, there is a consolidation taking place in the steel sector. Now, what is driving the consolidation? The fact is, there is a view that seems to be gaining ground, that in the steel sector, only if companies become larger in size, they will be able to cope with the cyclical fluctuations, industry fluctuations. So that is one of the reasons why Mittal and Arcelor joined together. So size makes a difference to be able to ride out any temporary, dips in the demand and so forth. So that was one of the motivations. Secondly, I feel that Chorus, in terms of their product offerings, enabled Tatas to fill certain gaps in the product portfolio. Okay, because Chorus, as you know, was known for producing very high quality steel, very specialty steels. And so, in today's competitive business world, if a steel company is to compete on a global scale, you have to have a complete product portfolio. That is, you have to have products, a wide range of products, and Chorus helped Tata to plug the gaps in their product portfolio and helped Tata to gain access to critical R&D, which Chorus had, and establish a presence in the European Union. Okay, so those were some of the motivations behind that deal. And I guess to a large extent, that same thing holds true for ArcelorMittal as well. Right. What do you see as the source of synergy in the acquisition of Terapia by Ranbaxy? Terapia is a Romanian pharmaceutical company that was recently acquired by Ranbaxy. Okay. What was the source of synergy?
Well, in the US market, but
Okay.
they have a foothold in the European market, and this provides a good synergy in the market.
That's right, exactly right. In fact, Romania is seen as a platform for further expansion in Eastern Europe. And Terapia is a company that can provide Ranbaxy the platform, achieve a lot of cost reduction, synergy by acquiring that firm. In the case of Beta Farm, there is not that much scope because the company is a good company, well-run company. But what I think Dr. Reddy is hoping is that this combination will help them to share the competencies of the two firms and establish or create new products that will help them compete more effectively on a global scale. Okay, what about the Videocon team? What was the main motivation for that?
Non-internationalization. Videocon was basically non-US was limited to.
Okay. Long needed certain critical gearbox technology, which Hansen had. It's a Belgian, turbine maker. So that was the motivation for that. Yes. And in the case of Tata Tea and Tetley, it's basically Tetley was a very well-known brand in the US and in UK. And in terms of processing technology, Tetley was a market leader. And so this gives Tata Tea the opportunity to expand into the lucrative markets of the US and UK. And so that is the reason why you would have noticed that even post-acquisition, the Tetley brand has not been diluted. I mean, Tata Tea is still keeping the Tetley brand because it's a well-known brand. And what they are also hoping is that Tetley actually does not own any of the tea estates. They used to buy tea from the global markets. Now, Tata Tea has got several tea estates that it owns. So what they are hoping is that by having Tetley buy tea from Tata's itself and then process it perhaps in India, using the technology that Tetley has, it will make it a much more, a greater value proposition. So it will help the combined firm. So as you can see, there are, various factors that have driven these deals. Okay, now to take it a step further, synergies can be grouped into operating synergy and financial synergy. Okay. Now, as I told you earlier, we talked about cost reduction and revenue enhancement. Now, just to reiterate the point I made earlier, attainment of cost reduction synergy is a lot more easier than attainment of revenue enhancement synergy. We talked about operating synergy. What do we mean by financial synergy? You all know about the importance of the cost of capital, right? The cost of financing. So if you can acquire another firm, which will enable you to reduce your cost of capital, that is financial synergy. Now, what is the benefit of a reduction in the cost of capital?
The price should be
Okay. All right.
value of the firm.
In how can you, eventually that is the result, but very simply, reduction in the cost of capital. I'm sorry?
Cost of capital is denoted in variation of firm.
Okay.
Reduces the value of firm.
Okay. See, from a capital budgeting perspective, reduction in the cost of capital means that more projects will be deemed acceptable because their internal rate of return will exceed the hurdle rate, which is the cost of capital. So you will have a bigger pool of projects to evaluate. And what is the, I mean, when you all know about net present value, there's a direct correlation between NPV and value creation. So reduction in the cost of capital contributes to greater NPV, which in turn results in greater value creation.
It's all very
I'm sorry?
It's all very
Yes, exactly.
Otherwise, my cost of credit.
Now, I've said here, do you think this is possible? Yes, should be possible, but it's not that easy to achieve that. I mean, now for example, if the target company has untapped debt capacity, then it is possible for you to reduce your cost of capital by acquiring that firm. Because what you can do is you can utilize or take advantage of the reduction, you take advantage of the untapped debt capacity. That means, see, when we say untapped debt capacity, what are we talking about? We are saying that this target company has not fully utilized the benefits of financial leverage. So the acquiring company, by buying this firm, can take advantage of that, and debt being the cheapest source of financing, that will result in reduction in the cost of capital. So it is possible. All right. Now, I thought I'll just spend a few minutes, talking about corporate governance. Okay. Now, so what do you mean by corporate governance? What is corporate governance? Or let me rephrase my question. How do you ensure good corporate governance in a firm? Oh wow.
It's a mechanism put in place to streamline.
Why can't you have a forward of your book from Morsel out today? Which you have sent to the session. You minister can have it forwarded possible.
This is a mechanism put in place which ensures that the actions of the board might be in such a way they ultimately result in attainment of the shareholder stakeholder.
Creation of value.
Yeah.
Right. And how do you ensure this? One of the ways you can ensure it is by having the board structured in a way where the independent directors outnumber the executive directors, that is the employee directors. I mean, this will ensure that the CEO does not get away with some kind of frivolous deals that can destroy value rather than create value. For example, I mean, you might have read in the papers recently that HSBC has hired Mr. Narendar as an independent director, paying 52 lakhs per year. Why did they pay this enormous amount of money? Because he would be functioning as an independent director, and hopefully his presence in the board will act as a deterrent to value destruction. Okay, so that is the reason for that. So what is the role of corporate governance in mergers and acquisitions? I mean, is there a correlation between corporate governance and effective acquisitions? Acquisitions or mergers that will result, which will eventually result in value creation for all the stakeholders.